All right. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Update Show. I'm your host, Omari Salisbury. Trey on a holiday has a day off today, so I had to reach deep into my bag of tricks. And guess who I pulled out? Justin Carter, the CapitolHillSeattle.com, Capitol Hill Seattle blog. What's up, man?
Good morning. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you, man. I don't see or talk to you as often these days since Chop ended. We used to bump into each other all the time. You'd come over there and come on the morning show and update us as to what's going on. How have you been?
Doing all right. I know the good old days of summer have passed. We're into the fall and winter of dealing with all the consequences now.
Lots of consequences that are out there. Speaking of the protests, though, let's jump right into this first. We actually got a few different things here. Yesterday marked the 150th day of the Seattle protest, and one way or another, for 150 days, people have been in the streets of the Emerald City. We got a little bit of video here, and then we'll pull up the article that you actually have up there on CapitolHillSeattle.com. This is just a short clip of just protesters marching down Pine Street last night.
What do we want for number 5? 30 seconds to resign. Whose lives matter? Black lives matter. Whose lives matter? Black lives matter.
And then also rolling right into, we saw Eagle's son Williams, and you know Eagle's son is John T. Williams' nephew. John T. Williams' nephew. Oh, what was that? And John T. Williams, you might remember, is the wood carver who was killed 10 years ago there on Boren and in Olive. And the protesters stopped right there last night to recognize John T. Williams. And Eagle's son actually said a few words to the crowd that was there.
Everyone come out here, and we're all out here for a reason. And like Black and Indigenous, and like my other friends are Black and then Native. So it's a struggle to be out here and to see all this pain, but being out here as a community, as everyone was saying, as we support each other, we're out here for each other. But yeah, 10 years ago, my uncle got murdered right here on this corner block because an officer thought it was wrong, morally wrong, to see a wood carver just carving down the street. That'd be like if you guys saw me carving and got shot. It's the same thing. And then what are you gonna do? Everyone just doesn't stand up and rise. So I wanted to say, appreciate that everyone came out. Love you guys, appreciate it.
All right, and so now we're back here, and Justin, we see here on CapitolHillSeattle.com, Seattle marks 150 days of protests with March from Capitol Hill. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can see in that video and in that speech we just heard, it's the best and most remarkable things that have come out of last night's protest and really the summer's efforts. You're talking about cross-group efforts. You're talking about lots of people organizing for causes. And in compiling a timeline and going through these 150 days, it's amazing to me how difficult it is to express some of those things that, those rhythms and those chants and those marches we just saw, because in the headlines and in the paragraphs to describe it, it can get overshadowed by the clashes with police, the violence, the tear gas, the broken windows and the fires. And so, I just, seeing those videos, it's really powerful. Looking at this big, long timeline of 150 days, I'm not sure it really reflects some of those spirits.
Right. One thing that I noticed last night was a lot of original people are still there. A lot of people I saw 150 days ago. And I guess how organized things are too. I mean, you got to remember, like 150, no one knew what this was going to be 150 days ago. And some people who were just kind of random people who were there, and now they're out front and they're leaders of this and that. You see a very organized car brigade that navigates the streets over there. You see a mutual aid system that follows the protest. And you also, for me, I hear a more detailed message. You got to remember 150 days ago, it was, what's his name? George Floyd. What's her name? Breonna Taylor. And now people are talking about different legislation that they want to see passed and, actions that they want city council and the mayor to change. So it seems like a message has been refined over the last 150 days.
For sure. I mean, I think we take for granted the amount of work that has come to pass, and it is frustrating for some to not see more progress. But the bills and the work in city council, if nothing else, show some real concrete steps moving forward. You talk about some of the logistics and just the maturation of the protests in Seattle, and that's something that I remark on a bit in the story. It's not really what the story's about, but it's impossible to ignore the size of the car brigade. Even the efforts online are increasingly kind of just sophisticated organizations. People who can't be there are helped by monitoring scanners and keeping track of police activity, and those kinds of things. It just really, it's a sign that this is a real organized effort that comes together pretty organically, and it's probably set up for continuing well on past another 150 days, I would guess.
Right. They had a sign down there in Westlake. I think it said Montgomery bus boycott 381 days. And they were saying that, Seattle protest 150. We're challenging people to stay in the streets and to push forward. That being said, do you see momentum in the Seattle protest continuing at this level, or building on, or maybe dying down some?
I'm terrible at that kind of prognostication. I know the energy last night was really, and I think it's tough for organizers that are out there all the time. There was a little bit of the complaining that, or I'm looking for a better word for this. It's inspirational, but it's definitely like, where have you been lately? And that was a message that we did hear last night, because numbers have dropped off from some of the peaks of the summer, and it's just difficult. People have other things that they also need to do. But yeah, that being said, there's clearly a core. There's some goals now that have crystallized as far as how they'll get reached. There's still some work in progress on some of those goals. So yeah, I would see that there'll be an effort here. And there is also, we saw again some direct action activity last night. It was pretty muted and tame in comparison to some. But I imagine we'll continue to see that effort too, because there are lots of people who believe in the value of really making a stand and breaking some glass along the way.
All right. So before we move on to the next story here, wanted to put this photo up. This is some of the crew almost 150 days ago. Eric Calligraphy, Bobby Stills, Jake Gravbot, Nikki Barron, some of the Converge team that's been covering the Seattle protests. So, I got
how young you guys were. Oh, it's so cute.
Yeah, well, team, like they say, teamwork makes the dream work, man. I'm just the front man. Those guys really do all the work.
I'm envious. See, I work almost by myself, just continuously. You're lucky to have a group around you. You should treasure that.
I do. That's why I put their photos up all the time. So speaking of the protests and change, I saw Ruby Holland posted something on her Facebook this morning, and she said that she was thankful to this movement because it put pressure on the city to transfer Fire Station 6 and the Central Area Senior Center. Got a small clip right here from the city council briefing yesterday on the two bills. I think it's 199905. I sound like Kevin Schofield now. Reciting bill numbers, but here's a short clip that outlines the bills.
If it pleases the president, I would love to have Council Bill 119905, which is the Africatown transfer first, and then Council Bill 119906, the Central Area Senior Center second.
But just to state the boring stuff, Council Bill 119905 is a 99-year lease under a mutually offsetting benefits agreement with Africatown. So it would provide Africatown with a landmark fire station structure that's at Yesler and 23rd Avenue South in the central area for 99 years. The programming that Africatown will provide will offset the rent that would normally be charged for that facility. The Central Area Senior Center project, the CASC, or the Central Area Senior Center, has been operating under a mutually offsetting benefits agreement for decades now. And that legislation would transfer the property to the senior center so that they would own the property outright. So there's a difference between the two projects. They're in different stages. The one has been active for a long time, and the other is a new project, new idea that the city is helping to get off the ground with this legislation.
A lot of work with Office of Economic Development over the years, Office of Planning and Community Development. Much appreciation to Sam Asefa and Uba, and Patrice just gave a great presentation in history. So she just took off half of my presentation. So that's great too. And definitely to the mayor's staff as well for getting this process moving at this critical time. The brilliance that has been in our community, the spirit of innovation, which is really making a way out of no way, working with what you have, often less, is what our community has been forced to make a way out of.
Really hearing about William Grove Center, for me, I think about my journey.
Hey, there was Trey Holiday. So Fire Station 6, it looks like, City Council is going to vote on this on November 2nd. Fire Station 6, Central Area Senior Center. The mayor did her part, I think over a month ago, 5 weeks ago, is when the mayor actually transmitted this over to City Council. There's a story you've been covering for a while at CapitolHillSeattle.com. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think these protests have pressured, some of this that was supposed to happen years ago, do you think the protests have moved the process?
I mean, clearly, it's a testament to why we protest. It's a testament to even some of the direct action, possibly. As the one city staffer mentioned, there's an arrangement that's been in place for decades in the Central District that's just been sitting there, and there's finally action now to take it to another level of community transference, and that's finally happening now. And I don't think it's a coincidence. It's clearly not. It's driven by trying to find some solutions that are concrete for people who are angry and people who are frustrated and people who are organizing. So yes, this stuff works. And these are the kinds of wins that you can achieve. But it's funny. I mean, even this process, it takes weeks. I mean, I think I've seen headlines about this transfer of the properties how many times now? And
yeah,
I was like, oh, there's still a bill?
Right. I think it was June when the mayor tweeted saying that the process was starting. I think that was the first week of June. And then it got transmitted 5 weeks ago. Now the council's briefing it. The council's going to vote on it on Monday. I don't expect any surprises. So I guess they'll be signing on it on Monday.
Yeah, and I mean, the real moment that really, really matters will be someday when the doors open on the Innovation Center, and that'll, that's even something that's going to take a lot of time to get to. So the wheels of progress really can turn slowly, and the wheels of Seattle process maybe even more slowly than those.
The infamous Seattle process.
Yeah.
Here's another story here. It looks like the DSA, the Downtown Seattle Association, and a lot of other people here, excuse me, they've sent a letter over here to the city. Says business and community group letter, spiraling public health and public safety crisis in Cal Anderson and Seattle parks. Now, here on the Morning Update show, we actually followed the group that was there in Shelter House for like 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. That was over there, and we haven't really reported on Cal Anderson or the state of any of the parks since then. But I do know that we get a lot of feedback from people about the parks and the state of the parks, and you get feedback from people who are like, hey, there's homeless in the parks. How can we support them more? And then you get feedback from people saying, like, why are the homeless in the parks? Get them out of here. Tell us a little bit more about the article there, CapitolHillSeattle.com.
Sure. The encampments in the parks, especially during the pandemic, it's a real litmus test for the Seattle liberal left establishment. It's a real challenge because you have a population that's in desperate need of assistance and resources, but also a lot of risk in getting them those resources right now during the pandemic. And so it's interesting, you know, I think a lot of people who nominally would say, oh yeah, you know, Black Lives Matter and I'm for the protests, or I'm for providing homelessness services, they also say, oh, get these people out of my park. So, you know, it's a real challenge for Seattle. It's starting to crystallize now. I think some of it was really political around arranging for funding for the navigation team replacement. That money now is kind of moving into place. And so those kind of political wins are clocked for some of the people writing these letters, these community groups. But for groups like Cal Anderson Park Alliance, you know, I don't look at it quite as cynically. I think that they really do care about how the park is taken care of. And they're really not just asking for a sweep. They're asking for real outreach. They're asking for real maintenance, just simple things like cutting the grass and cleaning the park back up. And technically reopening it. Cal Anderson remains technically closed to the public in the heart of the city. And that's wrong. The city needs to fix those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen in Cal Anderson is sweeps just somewhere. There's been times where they swept in the morning and everybody's back in the evening. So, you know,
Yeah.
it needs to be a bigger solution. Another article that was up there, CapitolHillSeattle.com, you're talking about COVID, facing the COVID-19 fall surge. Health officials encourage new habits when it comes to masks. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it's tempting right now to look at the rising peak of cases here in King County and see things like the outbreak at the University of Washington's fraternity and sorority housing, or even places like Harborview, where there was a limited but still notable outbreak. But officials say the real worry isn't strangers or isn't those kinds of outbreaks. It's when you have, you know, your aunt and your uncle over for a gathering, or your friends. And that's where they're seeing even small groups turn into kind of super spreader outbreaks. And the real advice, the simplest thing is that people just need to get used to wearing masks, even around their friends and family. And you'll probably hear more of that as we get closer to the holidays. It's just going to have to be a habit at the Thanksgiving table even.
All right. All right. What we're going to do right now, Justin, is we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we got Sade No Chill, a civil rights lawyer, Sade Smith. And we're going to be talking about this initiative here. This initiative called Team Blue Washington. And it's a push by law enforcement unions to push Washington ballot initiative to regulate protests and protect police jobs. We'll be right back. You're watching the Morning Update Show.